Okay, so these are the ingredients that we'll be using. Fresh stuff is always the best, so some fresh basil is great. Down here we have some parsley on the left and some spring onions on the right. We're lucky enough here in the early spring in the Finger Lakes area where we get these spring onions that just sprout up everywhere. And so I go out and just pick them and freeze them. So anyway, they add a really nice little savor to the sauce. Of course, plenty of mushrooms. I have here a couple of small sweet peppers that we'll use. Some eggs. Here we have some pork spare ribs. So I'm going to cut a few of these up and put them in the sauce. This really makes the flavor of the sauce. And if they're a little fatty, that's what you want. So you can see these. I picked these out because they had a bit of fat on them, and that always makes the sauce great. Let me come over here. So most important thing, of course, is the wine. So here is a nice Chilean Malbec. It's hearty enough so that it gives some really good flavor. I'll end up using this whole bottle. If I don't drink half of it, I'll use the rest of it. I have two pans here that I'm going to be using. They're both 15 liters. And so I'm going to make a bunch of this stuff. And this is basically what we do when we make sauce is we make enough to freeze several containers so that, hopefully we make it once a month. And when the kids and the grandkids are over, it'll last a while. For the meatballs, we have ground beef. So as you can see here, not sure how it goes in the UK, but here we have our choice of either a 90-10 mixture, which is 90% lean, 10% fat, or 80-20. So I choose the 80-20 usually because the meatballs tend to stick together a little bit more with the slightly higher fat content. So I like the way meatballs form with this. So these are 2 8-pound tubs of ground beef. These will make the meatballs. In this sauce, we don't just have free-floating meat or ground beef, rather. It's all in the meatballs. So it won't be like a typical Italian sauce that has a lot of meat floating in it. It will have no meat floating in it. The meat is in the meatballs. And then probably the important part is what you use as a base. So I use tomato puree. I'll use 7 of these 28-ounce cans in each of those big pans. And my favorite brand is Tutto Rosso. I've tried lots of them. I've tried lots of different purees. This is the one I've settled on years ago, and it's been the staple. I like puree, tomato puree, because I don't like chunks of tomato in the sauce. I like homogeneous sort of content. So I use puree. You certainly could use anything you want, tomato paste, and then you cut it with water. But I like puree because I don't have to add anything to it but a little bit of wine, and I'll show you that. And then my favorite pasta is angel hair. And I really just like the way angel hair works with sauce. The bigger noodles tend to overpower the dish, in my opinion, but I really like angel hair. Very, very thin, and it makes for a really good dish. Okay, so before we start cooking, a couple of the basics. First thing is the flame. So you need to make sure that we keep the flame low because we're going to be cooking with olive oil initially, and it burns very quickly. So as we saute the onions, we want to make sure that the flame is low, and we'll keep it low for most of the cooking. Once the sauce gets going, This is all you need to maintain it. You don't need anything higher. So keep an eye on this, and don't let the flame get too high. So again, I'm cooking with only olive oil. Just our generic extra virgin olive oil is good to start off with, and inside the pan. So I've got enough olive oil to just barely cover the bottom, and we're going to let that heat up in both pans. And as that heats up, we're going to dice up some onions to put in there. And we'll dice up the onions, put them in there, let them saute till they start to turn a little bit brown. That will give us the base flavor. I like to use sweet onions, so I'm going to use these 3 fairly large sweet onions, and this will make up what I put in the sauce and what I put in the meatballs. So I'm going to dice a little bit of this up and get it simmering in that olive oil. And that's what turns the smell of the house into heaven. Alrighty, so onions going in. This is that heavenly smell that will permeate the house. And we're going to let these onions just saute in here for a little bit. Again, flame's pretty low, which is good. Usually what I do at this point is I'll put just a tad of garlic and or onion salt in there just for the cooking part. So if you're watching your sodium, you can use garlic or onion powder. So I'm just gonna put a little bit in there. This is salt, onion salt. Just give it a little bit of a touch. And we want to make sure that we keep moving this all around to discourage it from sticking to the bottom and burning. Because what this is doing is really just creating the flavor. It's flavoring the oil, basically. And of course, what would any Italian dish be without garlic? So I'm going to put a couple of garlic cloves in here, good sized ones. Let them saute along with the onions. And everything I do in this pot, I'm also doing in the other pot, but I'm going to show you this one because it's just a little bit easier. But we're going to let that go, and I'm just going to watch for these to start to get to be a little bit on the brown side, and then I know that these things are ready to receive the sauce. And while that stuff is still percolating in there, I'm going to start opening these cans. Not the way my Nana did it, but hey, this is the 21st century. We'll take a look in one of these. Save everything. So you see the consistency of this. It's thick. It's got a really nice color, not real red. It's just orange, and it's the perfect tomato puree, in my humble opinion. And checking the progress of the onions, you can see that they're now have a kind of toasty brown ring around them. So this is the perfect time to add the tomato puree. So these guys are ready. This olive oil is now permeated with the cooking onions and garlic, and we're ready to receive the next batch. Okay, so this is the part when we dump the puree in. I'm going to do 2 cans per 4 cans at once. So you get it in there as quickly as possible. It cools the oil down so it prevents it from burning. So that's 4 cans. Again, I have 7 cans for each pot. I'm going to stir that up a little bit just to make sure that bottom stays the way I want it to. Okay, so that's 4 cans. And we'll add 3 more. 1, 2, and finally 3. Voila. One very important note: before you use the wine, make sure you taste it. Yes. Not only does it put you in a good mood for cooking, but Malbecs are really great. Okay, so here are all my empty cans of tomato puree, and you may say to yourself, are these dead soldiers? And the answer is absolutely not. There's still a lot that can be reconstituted from all these cans. Especially tutto rosso, which is a very thick puree. For you guys in the UK and in Scotland, you may have to, get the Glenfiddich puree, or I don't know, Basingstoke puree if you're in the UK. But anyway, here's the magic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pick one of these, and I'm going to fill it to about a quarter. So about a quarter of the way in there. And then I'm going to go through the process of scraping all of the puree I can. Of course, the wine's going to help cut it, so it should pretty much clean out the can. And then pour it in can number 2. Should end up with like a nice clean can, kind of sort of like that. And then repeat the process for every can. So just make sure that you got, a flat wooden spoon is my weapon of choice. And just make sure you scrape the sides, scrape the bottom to dislodge any tomato puree that's in there. Pour into the next can. Check for evidence of problems. Nope, looks good. And etc., etc. I'm going to start 2 of these going. So I'm going to start a second one over here, because the wine is going to be a big part of the sauce. So again, in this one, I poured almost maybe a half of this in here. And again, this is 28 ounces, so that's probably about 14 ounces of wine. Remember, the alcohol boils out of the sauce, so it's not like you're going to get drunk from this. But what remains is the tannins, and the tannins are the secrets. You can also, if you have a wine issue, you can also cut this with water, but ugh. Don't invite me over for dinner if you do that. Nice and clean. So the end result of all that reconstituting is 2 extra 28-ounce cans of a mix of tomato puree and wine. So we'll put one of these in each one of our 2 pots, and that'll be it for the liquid content. Unless I have to thin it out a little bit with some more wine a little bit later, we'll do that maybe. And here's that extra can. And again, what I would do is get yourself a spatula that's got a square bottom, because you need to constantly stir this, and this is what helps you to make sure that nothing is sticking to the bottom. So notoriously, a mixture of heat and tomatoes will tend to burn if you don't keep it moving. So, every minute and a half while you're cooking, you need to be doing this, scraping the bottom, giving it a stir. And then at this point, you can do one of 2 things. We can either turn the heat up to make it cook faster, or we can cover it. I prefer covering it as opposed to raising the heat. So we'll cover that up, and when it starts to get bubbly, we'll add a few more things to it. For those of you that are in less temperate parts of the world, like here in the Finger Lakes, doesn't mean you can't have fresh lemons all year round. You may have to give up a little part of the kitchen, but this guy gives us 3 dozen twice a year. Okay, so it's time to check the progress here. And as you can see, it's bubbling nicely. Again, we're going to run our spatula along the bottom, give it a stir. It should feel smooth. You should just feel the smooth bottom of the pan. If it feels grainy or bumpy, that means that either you're not stirring often enough, or the flame is a little too high, or both. So make an adjustment before things get out of hand and you have a big bump of burnt stuff at the bottom. Definitely don't want that. But now, since it's gently boiling, we can do the next phase, which is to add a little bit of seasoning. So you're going to notice that I don't use a lot of seasoning. And of course, the seasoning that I'm looking for, I can't, there it is, okay. So, if you like your sauce very spicy, then you can add, peppery stuff, peppercorn, whatever you want. We particularly don't. We would rather add it at the table. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit of salt, a little bit quicker than before. Not sure how much that is, but that's about how much I add. Again, if you're on some kind of sodium diet, then adjust that to your liking. But that's about as much as I add, and that's about all the salt that's going to go in it. The next important part is the baking soda. So baking soda helps neutralize some of the acid in the tomatoes. So what I do is, for 15-liter pot like this, I'll put in about, so that's a teaspoon, but I'm not measuring it because I'm Italian. And I'll put that in, and you'll see immediately that that it will start reacting with the sauce. And if I give it a stir, it'll fizz a bit, and that's the acid being hydrogenized, making little bubbles for me. I just give it a stir until the bubbles are done. And there's no taste to this, so it doesn't add any kind of taste to the sauce. It just performs a chemical balance for us. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to start adding some greenery. So I'm going to add, let's see, I would say 1, 2, oh, that smells so good. 3, 4 basil leaves. Okay, fresh basil, please. Stir it in. Comme ça. And I'm going to add a little bit of my spring onion, just a little bit, from the backyard. These pieces are so tiny that they basically disintegrate, but they do leave just a hint of a very, very good flavor. Doing it to the other one too. While you enjoy watching it bubble. And if you don't have spring onions, which you probably don't, you could use any green onion that you find in the store. Just I would say don't overwhelm the sauce with a lot of it. You saw how much I put in there, just a little bit. And I'm going to take my 2 small little sweet peppers. As you can see, these are so small, so there's not a lot of seeds inside of it. You could use a regular size one. Oh, it smells so good. You could use a regular size one and you know, just clean the seeds out before you put them into the sauce. And then I just pop them in whole, like everything else. And then take the opportunity to stir it up a little bit. In the other pot. Then we're going to cover these up a little bit and let them get up to another boil before we put in some meat. So the flavor of the sauce doesn't come so much from the spices that you put in, but from the other organic materials that put in, specifically the meat. So really the flavor of your sauce is going to depend on what you put in it. So basically, like I told you before, I put in a few pieces of pork, fatty pieces of pork. That is the main flavor that will end up coming out of the sauce. And then the meatballs will also give it a flavor. So the longer you cook it with those things in there, the richer the flavor will be. You just want to make sure that you don't cook the meatballs too long, because the longer you cook them, the more fat separates from them and the more likely they are to shrink into like little golf balls and or break apart. Okay, so I'm going to cut a couple pieces of pork here to put in the sauce. So again, remember, fatty part is going to give us the most flavor. So gonna cut. Thank God for scissors. I don't know. I remember my parents didn't have scissors to cook with, so I don't know how they did it. But man, kitchen shears, the best thing, best invention ever. And again, these are for flavor, so I would say that these are probably going to constitute probably 30% of the flavor of the sauce. I'm gonna cut 2 of these for each of my vats of sauce that I'm making. Can't tell you how many scissors I've broken. Don't tell Sherry how many scissors I've broken doing this, because it's a tough job, laddie. Yeah, one more. I'm gonna have to rest. You have to have a glass of wine. All right, hallelujah. Okay, so I have my 4 pieces here, and I'll put 2 in each one of the 2 vats. Alrighty, bubbling nicely. So now the sauce is in a place where the meat and everything else we put in will start cooking very nicely. Stir that baby up. And allora, the 2 pieces of meat. Boom. And boom. And additionally, 1 onion, whole. Boom. Give it a stir. And we'll let it do its magic for a little bit. We have a lot of room in this pan, and this will eventually be filled up with meatballs till about right there. So we have more meat to put in, more meatballs, and again, those are all contributing to what will become the sauce. So now I'm going to add some sausage. So I do from time to time make sausage, but it's been a while. So I'm going to add some sweet Italian sausage. This is a 16-ounce package, and I'm going to put 2 of these packages in here. And again, that's going to add to the flavor nicely. In our family, there are those that like the meatballs, and then those that like the sausages, and I like them both. So have to have enough in here so that everybody's whim can be met. All right. And once again, we'll stir that up. Of course, every time you put cold stuff in, you'll bring the temperature of the sauce down, so it'll stop bubbling. But it'll start up again pretty quick. So next, if you like mushrooms, and I love mushrooms, this would be the time when we do the mushrooms. So these are big mushrooms. Did not grow these, so calm down. I didn't pick these in the forest. I'll put this much in each of the 2, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them up into fairly thick-ish pieces. Stems are the best part, by the way. So 2 considerations for mushrooms. The longer you cook them, the more they'll reduce. So if you like big, fat, sort of just cooked mushrooms, then put them in last, or put them in late after the meatballs have been cooking for a while. If you'd rather just enjoy the taste and just have the have the occasional mushroom piece that might come out in your dish, then put them in now, which is what I'm going to do. So I chop these up, like I said, and then I'm going to leave about, about 5 of them, and I'm going to just put those in whole, because then if I really want a mushroom, I'll just go bob for apples on those, and I'll just go fish them out when they're cooked. let them go. Yummy. Ooh, look at that piece. So, again, like I said, the pork is for the flavor. But I'll tell you what, after this cooks in there for a couple hours, then that piece of pork comes out. It'll be falling off its bone. And as the dad, I have the privilege of searching for the piece of pork and getting it on my plate. Now, some of you may recognize this cheese. So we got this cheese in Italy at a little stand where a gentleman was making not mozzarella, but the other stuff, and I forget what it's called now. Made with cow milk, not with buffalo milk. Mozzarella, buffalo milk. So anyway, I am going to use this cheese to make my meatballs, and I think they'll be delicious because this is a really good cheese. Okay, if there was ever a part that's going to drive you nuts, it's probably this part, and it's the making of the meatballs. So, like I said before, I have 2 of these, and they are each 6 pounds. Between the 2 vats, I need to make 9 pounds, so about 4.5 pounds for each batch. So I'm going to use 75% of both of these, and we'll start there. So first I'm going to start with the ground beef, and this is the hardest part. It kills my back just to stand here and make these meatballs. And a lot of times, I get my wife to do it, but she is not available. So, I have to do it. Let's see, 1.5, good. Okay. That's about 75% of one of those. I'm not going to weigh it. That's part of the problem. I'm Italian, and I don't measure stuff. And I know that the best cooks always do, but guess what? I don't count myself in that category. So let's see, I'm going to use about half of the cheese that I have in there, and half of the onions. These onions are chopped a little big. Don't want anything really big. I like big pieces of onion in my meatballs. It just makes them savory. So my brother Frank likes it that way too. So me and Frank love it that way, and that's why we're going to do it that way. So you got those. And now we're going to add probably almost the rest of this spring onion that I have here. So add that in. The secret is that in these we're not adding many different flavors. So when the meatballs go in, it's not like they have a spice that's different than what's already in there. And as you can see, I'm using onions. I'm using the spring onions also. The only thing that's a little different here is I'm going to use some parsley. So there's no parsley in the sauce or sugu. That's the word. That's the Sicilian word for sauce. In Italian, it's spelled S-U-G-O, but we Sicilians like to change it up a little bit because our island has been invaded and mastered by no less than 30 different countries over 3 or 4 millennia. So we tend to be a little Sicilian. So anyway, I have two types of parsley here. I have flat leaf, and then I have curly leaf. I don't see the difference in taste between the two, so I use them both interchangeably. Some people will say they're different, but not me. Very good. Eggs. So a couple eggs. The eggs kind of hold them together. So the eggs help to keep the whole thing, help to keep the meatballs sorted together so that they don't fly apart. And let's see, blah 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 blah. I use a little bit of milk here. So I think that the fat in the milk helps a little. That's my thought. So I'm going to put a little in. Not too much because we're going to put wine in there too. And milk and wine are not necessarily the best combinations, but if you take care, it ain't a problem. That, and I need a little bit of salt here. So, a little salt. And I always miss something, and I'm not sure what it is, but I think this is good. And then the breadcrumbs. So, yep, you need breadcrumbs seasoned. I use seasoned with Pecorino Romano cheese. There's Pecorino in the cheese mix that I put on there. So I mixed the cheese that we got in on the Amalfi Coast when we were there, and I mixed that with some Pecorino. Pecorino is the best. So I'm using breadcrumbs that have that in there too. So the breadcrumbs, you're going to say, holy cow, and you're just going to say, how much did you put in there? I don't know. About that much. And the breadcrumbs are going to be the thing that makes your meatballs either hard or soft. I like them soft, but not so soft that they fall apart. So a good amount of breadcrumbs is going to help make them soft. And then the thing that I use to liquefy it is my favorite liquefier. Put some of that in there. And now I'm just going to work this by feel. And when it feels like it's right, that means it's not too pasty and not too hard, then I know I've got it. So yeah. Okay, so this is kind of the consistency I'm looking for. I know it's hard for you to see what we got here, but so when I need the mixture like that, when I'm done, there shouldn't be like a ton of ground beef that sticks to your hands. So if a lot of ground beef sticks to your hands, then it's probably too moist and it'll probably fall apart. But this is about right. And the meatballs are going to be about that size. Okay, so meatballs, and now let's go put them in the sauce. Let's go put them in the Sugu. smell this right now. My gosh. When the technology advances so that we can record things and then actually record the aromas with it. Do this gently. Number one, if you dive bomb them in there, you're going to make a mess. But number two, they'll tend to stay together a little bit better if you place them in there nicely. I don't know if you can see it, but you probably can. I turned the flame down very low. So at this point, the Sugu has built up a lot of heat. So we don't need the pilot, the actual heat, to be high. It can be very low, and everything in there is almost to boiling, all the meat, all the sauce. So it'll continue to cook without having it up high. So if you turn the heat down very, very low and just keep stirring it, it'll cook the way it needs to cook. The bottom of the pan won't burn, and you'll end up with a much, much nicer batch. And here's the final version of the Sugu cooking, Sugu di Sant'Antonino. Actually, here's both batches. So 2 15-liter pots full of this. This has probably been cooking for 2 hours. And I'll let it cook for another hour because I just put some more meatballs in. And then I'll turn the heat way down. In fact, I'll turn the heat down now because, like I said, once we cover this, this will keep cooking and without too much help. And we'll let it cook within itself for about another hour. Then we'll shut it off completely and let it rest. We can serve it anytime over spaghetti after the next hour. The meatballs we just put in have to have a little bit of time to cook. And we'll show you a plate of it when we get done with that. How much do you like spaghetti? 1? Is it good? Come on! What about up? Okay, I'm gonna see if Anna likes hers. Anna, how do you like it? Oh, good, a thumbs up. Let's see. How do you like your spaghetti? Alfred Hitchcock look. Let's see. Oh, how do you like your spaghetti?
4.
4? Oh, okay, not sure what that means, but that's great. And here's my little plate with, of course, my my spare rib, like I said I was going to give you. And over here, Nana is doing her thing, and she's going to start putting this sauce into all these containers. Right, Nana?
Yes.
And do you like Papa's sauce, Nana?
Oh, it's delicious. It's a very good batch.
Thank you. Thank you.